think I have to.
I can.
Or you can. Okay.
I'm just gonna stand next to you.
I'm destroying.
Haribo. Did you ask him to come?
Shri Radha Gokulananda ki, Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Shri Gaurnitai ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Hiva Jaya Jaya Gaura Chander Harati Ko Shobha
Jaya Jaya Gaura Chande Arati Kushobha
Hiva Jaya Jaya Gaura Chander Harati Ko Shobha
Jaya Jaya Gaura Chande Arati Kushobha
Jana Vidata Jagamanaloka
Jana Vikatavane Jagavanaloka Vikatavane
Arati kore na Brahma Hari Devagane
Arati Korena Brahma Adi Devagane
Nara Hari Adi Kori Chamaradulaya
Narari Adi Kore Chamaradulaya
Sanjaya Mukunda Vashu Gosadigaya
Sanjaya Mukunda
bhaje karatala.
Shankha bhaje Ganta bhaje, bhaje karatala.
Madhura mridanga bhaje paramarasa.
Madhura mridanga bhaje paramarasa.
Shankha bhaje Ganta bhaje madhur 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 bhaje.
Shankha bhaje Ganta bhaje madhur 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 bhaje.
Shankha bhaje Ganta bhaje madhur 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 bhaje.
Shankha bhaje madhur madhur bhaje.
Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol.
Jai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Gora Hari Bol.
Bahu Koti Chandra Jini Vadana Ujvala.
Bahupati Chandra Jine, Vadana Ujvala.
Gala Deshe Vanamala Kore Jalamala.
Gala Deshe Vanamala, Kore Jamala.
Shiva Shuka Narada Preme Gada Gada.
Shiva Shuka Narada, Preme Gada Gada.
Bhakti Vinoda Dekhe Gora Rasa Pada.
Bhakti Vinoda Dekhe, Gora Rasa Pada.
Bhakti Vinoda Dekhe Gora Rasa Pada.
Bhakti Vinoda Dekhe, Gora Rasa Pada.
Shiva Jaya Jaya Gaura Chande Arati Ko Shobha.
Shiva Jaya Jaya Gaura Chande, Arati Ko Shobha.
Jana Vitatavane Jagamanaloka.
Jana Vitatavane, Jagamanaloka.
Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol.
Jai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Gora Hari Bol.
Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol.
Jai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Gora Hari Bol.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta.
Hare Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Jaya Radha Gokula Nanda, Radha Gokula Nanda, Radha Gokula Nanda Shri Radhe. Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman, 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 Jaya Gauranita, Jaya Gauranita, Gauranita, Jaya Gauranita. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtottara Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtottara Sata Shri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की श्री वृंदावन धाम की श्री मायपुर धाम की श्री जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की गंगा माई की यमुना माई की भक्ति देवी की श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी की समवेत भक्त वृंद की. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Praladadayine. Hiranyakashipu raksha.
Ito Nrisimo Bharato Nrisimo Yato Yato Yamitato Nrisimo Daye Nrisimo Hidaye Nrisimo Nrisima Madim Sharanam Prapadim Amadim Sharanam Prapadim Tavakara Kamalavare Nakam Abdutta Shingam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Vringam Keshavadita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Narasimhadev, Jaya Narasimhadev, Narasimhadev, Jaya Narasimhadev. Jaya Pralamaraj, 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 Jaya Pralamaraj. It's okay. Narasimha Bhagavan ki jai. Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Really good.
I was like, take it.
Safi. Huh? Yeah, you know me. No worries. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Damadava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yashodanandana Jaya Raja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachare Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Girivaradari Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gokulananda, Radha Gokulananda, Radha Gokulananda, Shri Radha. Jaya Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we will be reading from chapter 4, verse 8. The chapter is entitled Transcendental Knowledge. Om Jnana Trimandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stvapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Fadivam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakampitamscha Savaitam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Trubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, yes, we'll be reading from 4.8 today. So we will start off just by getting the verse out. So maybe we can repeat just line by line. Paritranaya sadhunam vinasaya chaduskritam dharma samstapanartaya Sambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya sadhunam Vinasaya chaduskritam Dharma samstapanartaya Sambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya sadhunam Vinasaya chaduskritam Dharma samstapanartaya Sambhavami yuge yuge. Feel free to repeat. Paritranaya sadhunam Vinasaya chaduskritam Dharma samstapanartaya Sambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya sadhunam Vinasaya chaduskritam Dharma samstapanartaya Sambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya sadhunam Vinasaya chaduskritam Dharma samstapanartaya Sambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya sadhunam Vinasaya chaduskritam Dharma samstapanartaya Sambhavami yuge yuge. So translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Paritranaya, for the deliverance. Sadhunam, of the devotees. Vinasaya, for the annihilation. Cha, and. Duskritam, of the miscreants. Dharma, principles of religion. Samstapana artaya, to re-establish. Sambhavami, I do appear. Yuge, millennium. Yuge, after millennium. So translation is, to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion, I myself appear millennium after millennium. And the purport. According to Bhagavad Gita, a sadhu, holy man, is a man in Krishna consciousness. A person may appear to be irreligious, but if he has the qualifications of Krishna consciousness wholly and fully, he is to be understood to be a sadhu. And duskritam applies to those who do not care for Krishna consciousness. Such miscreants, or duskritam, are described as foolish and the lowest of mankind, even though they may be decorated with mundane education, whereas a person who is 100% engaged in Krishna consciousness is accepted as sadhu, even though such a person may be neither learned nor well-cultured. As far as the atheistic are concerned, it is not necessary for the Supreme Lord to appear as he is to destroy them, as he did with the demons, Ravana and Kamsa. The Lord has many agents who are quite competent to vanquish demons. But the Lord especially descends to appease his unalloyed devotees, who are always harassed by the demoniac. The demon harasses the devotee, even though the latter may happen to be his kin. Although Prahlad Maharaj was the son of Hiranyakashipu, he was nonetheless persecuted by his father. Although Devaki, the mother of Krishna, was the sister of Kamsa, she and her husband Vasudev were persecuted only because Krishna was to be born of them. So, Lord Krishna appeared primarily to deliver Devaki rather than kill Kamsa, but both were performed simultaneously. Therefore, it is said here that to deliver the devotee and vanquish the demon miscreants, the Lord appears in different incarnations. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita of Krishna Das Kaviraj and the following verses, Madhya 20.263 to 264, summarize these principles of incarnation. Shrishti hetu ye murti prapanche avatare se Ishvara murti avatar nam dare maya Mayatita Parvamyo me Sabara Avastana Vishveve Avatari Dare Avatara Nama. The avatar, or incarnation of Godhead, descends from the kingdom of God for material manifestation, and the particular form of the personality of Godhead who so descends is called an incarnation or avatar. Such incarnations are situated in the spiritual world, the kingdom of God. When they descend to the material creation, they assume the name avatar. There are various kinds of avatars, such as Purush avatars, Guna avatars, Leela avatars, Sakchavesha avatars, Manvantara avatars, and Yuga avatars, all appearing on schedule all over the universe. But Lord Krishna is the primeval Lord, the fountainhead of all avatars. Lord Krishna descends for the specific purpose of mitigating the anxieties of the pure devotees who are very anxious to see him in his original Vrindavan pastimes. Therefore, the prime purpose of the Krishna avatar is to satisfy his unalloyed devotees. The Lord says that he incarnates himself in every millennium. This indicates that he incarnates also in the age of Kali. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the incarnation in the age of Kali is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who spread the worship of Krishna by the Sankirtan movement, congregational chanting of the holy names, and spread Krishna consciousness throughout India. He predicted that this culture of Sankirtan would be broadcast all over the world, from town to town and village to village. Lord Chaitanya, as the incarnation of Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is described secretly, but not directly in the confidential parts of the revealed scriptures, such as the Upanishads, Mahabharata, and Bhagavatam. The devotees of Lord Krishna are very much attracted by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya. This avatar of the Lord does not kill the miscreants, but delivers them by his causeless mercy. So, I would like to start the class by just thanking the seniors present in the room and in the temple, and just for this opportunity to speak from Bhagavad Gita. So I pray for all the blessings of everyone here and all the devotees at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, that I can speak something of useful and something nice about Krishna. So, yeah, this is, a very nice verse, a very popular verse for those of us doing the Bhakti Shastri, or those who have just started. This is one of the verses that, we've been learning recently. And yeah, it's, for me, when I was sort of reading this verse, the theme of it, I would say, would be, it seems to be all about Krishna's appearance. So it's talking about how Krishna, he comes down into the material world millennium after millennium and takes on the form of an avatar. So Krishna has appeared in this material world, numerous times as his avatars. And so I thought we could start off by, speaking about this, the different avatars of Krishna. So the word avatar, the root of it, so ava is down, and tra means to cross over. So together it means, one who descends. Or the way I kind of understood the Sanskrit was, Krishna, he's coming down, he's crossing over from the spiritual world to the material world, and he comes down in this material world and descends as an avatar. There are, 10 avatars that Krishna has taken. And I thought maybe we can be a bit interactive. And maybe we can see if we can get all 10 of these in the right order. So, does anyone know the first avatar? Yes, Abe. Matsya, yes. So that is the fish incarnation. And the second? Kurma, yep, that's the tortoise incarnation. Third? Varaha, yep, the boar incarnation. Nrsimhadev, yep, man-lion incarnation. Vamana, yep, dwarf Brahmana incarnation. Yep, that was the warrior incarnation. Ram, yep, that's correct. That's the 7th. Yep, Balaram and Krishna, yep. Buddha, yep, and last. And Kalki, exactly. Okay, wow, lots of scholars in the room. You're all going to do absolutely well in Bhakti Shastri. So yeah, these are the past avatars of Krishna. I think, a common misconception, which I definitely once had before I came into Krishna consciousness, and, I know that, a lot of, people who have some sort of understanding of the Vedas have, is that, in Krishna consciousness, in Sanatana Dharma, that there's many gods, and that, Hinduism is a polytheistic religion. But actually, the Gita explains that it's monotheistic. But actually, the term we can use, which I believe Chaitanya Charan speaks about, is this point about polyculturalism. So the way the Gita explains it is that there's one supreme personality of Godhead, which is Krishna. But that Krishna has different incarnations. So he'll have different incarnations like the ones we mentioned, Nrsimhadev, Ram, and Vishnu. And then different to his incarnations, though, there are the demigods. So demigods like Ganesh, Lord Shiva, Lord Indra, and all these demigods are in charge of a different aspect of the universe. And then we have the living entities, so us, humans, animals, and plants. So it makes this very clear distinction between these four categories. And often people they get these mixed up, or they might think that the demigods are the supreme Lord, or even might start even worshipping other living entities, like confuse humans to be gods. So that's one thing I guess the Gita makes very clear is, we read in almost every purport, Prabhupada will use the term, Krishna, which is Krishna, who is the supreme personality of Godhead. He's always hammering that into us. So, I guess that's the one common misconception that, people often might have. And even in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it sort of further establishes this. So in Canto 1, Chapter 3, verse 28, it says, Ete chamsa kalapamsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Svayam Indrari Vakulam Lokam Mridyante Yuge Yuge. All of the above mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. But Lord Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them appear on planets whenever there is disturbance created by the atheists. The Lord incarnates to protect the theists. So, from this we can understand how, Lord Krishna, he is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by his plenary portions or portions of them, he will manifest as, and that's where sort of the demigods and these different incarnations sort of appear. And so, we know that, Krishna, he's appeared in this material universe in the past. But then the question might arise, okay, but there's no avatar here today now, Krishna, he left a few thousand years ago. There's no current avatar in this day and age. And so then how can we experience then Krishna descending in our lives today? How can we really see Krishna in today if his avatars are no longer there? And so I kind of wanted to focus this class on this sort of aspect because, I just found it quite just like a very, very important part of this verse, and something I guess I've been reflecting on and trying to do more of recently. Let's see how we can experience Krishna in our current day lives, and if Krishna can descend into our everyday life. And so I wanted to start by saying a story. This is a story of the drowning man. I'm sure many of you might have heard of this already before. I first heard this story in a movie called The Pursuit of Happiness. I don't know if anyone's seen that, with Will Smith and his son. It's an amazing movie. But it is bona fide. It's bona fide because there's actually a scene where there's devotees doing a Harinam on the street, and Will Smith is walking with his son, he's walking on his own just across them, and there's a whole scene with that. So it's bona fide, don't worry. And so, this is the story of the drowning man. So there was a village, and one day there was a big flood and a very heavy storm, and the village flooded. So there was this one man, and he ended up being stuck on his rooftop. And so he decided to turn to God, and he started to pray to God for help. And then moments later, a man in a rowboat came, and he saw the guy on his roof, and he's like, "Okay, you're about to drown, so come along with me on my rowboat. I'll save you. We'll get to some shelter." And the man on the rooftop, he said, No, I don't need your help because God will come save me. I have faith that God is going to come and he's going to save me. So he had a lot of faith in God. So the man in the rowboat, he was surprised, but he just carried on going. And then a few moments later, a motorboat came. And the guy in the motorboat, and at this point, the flood, it was getting a bit worse. It was getting higher and higher. And the guy in the motorboat saw this guy on the roof, and he said, "Okay, you need to come in my motorboat, man. I need to save you." But the guy on the roof, he was like, "No, I don't need your help, because I have faith that God will come save me." And the guy in the motorboat was just so confused, like, I want to help this guy, but he doesn't want my help. So he just carries on. And then later, a helicopter comes, and he sees the guy from his roof. And the people in the helicopter, they have a rope. So they tell him, "We're going to chuck this rope down, and you can come and we can help you, get to land." And again, the guy on the roof, he's like, No, I don't need your help, because I have faith that God will come save me." Eventually, the man drowned. And when he went to heaven, he came face to face with God. And he actually asked God, he went up to God and he said, "God, why didn't you save me? I had so much faith. I had so much faith in you, and you didn't save me. What's going on?" And then God replied to him. And God said, "I sent you a rowboat, I sent you a motorboat, and I sent you a helicopter. What more did you want from me?" So the moral from this story is that, we might have, we might be religious, or we might have sort of faith, but are we seeing Krishna's hand presence in our everyday life? Are we seeing Krishna when he's there, when he's helping us, putting us in situations? Sometimes we might think that, it's just by chance, or it's just like a material arrangement, but are we seeing things as Krishna's arrangement? And are we really, seeing his presence in our everyday life, even when he's not present, as an avatar? So, yeah, that's the story of the drowning man. And I guess the first point, on this theme and topic of, how we can experience Krishna in our lives, the first thing I was kind of reflecting on is that it's all about sort of being conscious of Krishna. There's that common saying that, we need to be conscious before we be Krishna conscious. So it's all about being conscious of Krishna, and this all starts within the mind. Being conscious is, something that the mind is supposed to do. And, there's that famous verse about the mind being the best of friends and the worst of enemies. It's Bandhur atmanastasya yenatmaivatmana jitaha anatmanastu satrutve varte atmaiva satruvat. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends, but for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. So yeah, just about this point of being conscious before we be Krishna conscious. And for me, it just means that we have to be, attentive in everything that we do. And it can start off just with the small things I've noticed, like, when we pay obeisances, when you come in the temple room, when we pay 4 dandavats, we're using 8 limbs. This is what a devotee was telling me the other day, how we have to use all our 8 limbs, and one of the 8 limbs is the mind. So the mind is one of the limbs. And so when we're paying our dandavats, which is something we do every day, and it's maybe something just for a few seconds, are we actually thinking of Krishna, or are we thinking of the deities or of Prabhupada when we do that? And so, that's why we would often say a mantra when we pay our obeisances, because when we speak, then, it's kind of to push our mind to, think of why we're paying our obeisances and what we're doing. So in the small things every day, we can just try and be more conscious. And, even with hearing as well, something that we probably do engage in for most of the day. Our ears are always open, we're always hearing, whether it's conversations with devotees or listening to class, whatever it might be. It's funny because sometimes, we can be in a class, but at the same time, we could be something completely different. I don't know if you've ever experienced it, sometimes you've had a late night, Sunday night kirtans, next day for class, and you're sitting in class, you're here in the temple room, but your mind's like all the way still in bed, you're just like drowsing off, or you're thinking about, the services you have for today and whether you can schedule everything in time and all your actions. And yeah, I know that's definitely me quite often. So again, it's all about sort of being conscious. And yeah, I've noticed that, when we're hearing class or whatever it might be, that, if we're able to be more, focused and attentive, then it makes such a big difference. I was speaking actually with Rasaraj Krishna Prabhu just the other week. We were having lunch, and he gave me this really amazing tip about just how to be more conscious, just generally in class or whatever it might be. And he said, when you look at the lips or the eyes of the person talking, then naturally your mind is just more attentive, and you feel like it's actually, going in whatever they're saying. It's kind of reaching your heart. And when he said that, throughout our conversation, we're both just looking at each other's lips and our eyes, and I actually felt the difference so much. Like, it literally, I could feel like I was being more attentive, and I wasn't distracted about like, what's this person doing, or like, oh, look at the sun, and all this kind of stuff. Like, you're more focused on what they're saying. So that's a tip I've been trying to do ever since he said that, and it's definitely helped when I remember to actually do it. So feel free to try it out. Everyone's probably going to start staring at me in the eye now, but I'm okay with it. And even actually, I was remembering Doa Baladev Prabhu in today's morning class. He was making this point about how we see Krishna not with our eyes, but through our ears. So again, it's just re-emphasizing that point about hearing and having attentive shravanam. Shravanam is one of the biggest angas of bhakti, but we need to be conscious before we can even hear. And even everything else we do, whether it's our japa, whether it's service, reading, whatever it might be, we need to have a focused mind and an attentive mind for all that we do. And yeah, it's just something I was reflecting on recently, and it's honestly very, very difficult. Like controlling the mind, they say, Krishna says in the Gita, controlling the mind is more difficult than the wind, right? And it's so true. Like when I first heard this, when you just be more conscious, I was like, yeah, that makes complete sense. And I was like, yeah, okay, I can do that. It doesn't sound too bad. And for a week, I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna be conscious in everything I do. But it was definitely so difficult. They even say that the mind is like a monkey. Radhanath Swami talks about this in his book, The Journey Within. And there's just a really funny and an amazing story that kind of sums up the mind that he talks about. So when Radhanath Swami, when he was in India, obviously he ended up staying there. He was doing some preaching there, and his parents came to visit him once when he was in India. And this is the first time that his parents were even entering India. It was a completely new place for them. And so he's with his parents, and they're walking in the streets of India. And suddenly, as people who have been to India know, there's monkeys in India, and they're quite mischievous, and they like to steal things. So as they are walking, a monkey comes along out of nowhere and snatches Radhanath Swami's mother's handbag. It snatches this handbag, and it just runs off and climbs up into the trees. And in this handbag, there was so many of their things, like their credit cards, their passports, their money, and this monkey just snatched it and took it away. And at this point, his parents are freaking out and being like, oh, look what's happened. We've come here now. This has happened. What are we going to do? And they're panicking a bit. And at this point, Radhanath Maharaj, he just says a small prayer, and he's just praying to Krishna to help him. And then suddenly, in the corner of his eye, he sees that there's a banana vendor. There's a guy with a stall selling bananas. And so he runs to this vendor, and he asks him, yo, you need to give me... Well, he doesn't say yo, he's a lot more eloquent than me. But to paraphrase, he said, yo, I need this banana, like right now. It's an emergency. And the guy wouldn't give him... He's asking him, okay, you need to give me money. But obviously, he didn't have any money at the time. So he just instinctively just takes the banana, and he just starts running away. As he's running away, he turns behind, and he sees the vendor. He's getting annoyed, and he starts chasing after him. But then, as the vendor starts chasing after him, some more monkeys come to the vendor's stall, and they start stealing his bananas. So then the vendor has to go back, and so he got saved by these other monkeys. But Radhanath Maharaj, he runs back to his parents, and he sees the monkey in this tree, and now he has this banana in his hand. So what he does is he takes the banana and he throws it at the monkey, and his aim wasn't at the monkey. It was actually quite a bit off. But this was a good thing, because what happened was the monkey, as it saw the banana flying towards him, it leaped for the banana, and it let go of the handbag. And then the handbag fell, and they managed to get all their things back. And the lesson from that story, Radhanath Maharaj explains in his book, is that our mind, it functions just like that monkey. And it makes it, that monkey, our mind, it's hard for it to concentrate on any one thing. It's getting distracted by the handbag, the banana, all these different things. But what was important from that story is that what's important to us is that the moment the moment the monkey dropped the handbag, it focused on the banana. And the mind is like this as well. We're thinking about something, we might be doing something, and then a moment later, our mind is thinking about something else, some other thought or some other thing, it's a sense object that it gets distracted by. And that thing might not be as important as the other thing, but the mind is just naturally like that. And so, but what was interesting was the monkey, it let go of the handbag to grab onto something better, the banana. The banana is much more useful for the monkey, much more useful and beneficial for the monkey than the handbag, because, a monkey can't take the credit card, go shopping, or like, use the passport. But the marana, it can eat it and it will get nourished by it. So similarly, when we give the mind like a more fulfilling and beneficial focus, then we can easily overcome any distractions. So we might find ourselves distracted by different things, but when we absorb our mind or focus it on something that we know is more beneficial, then it's a lot easier to concentrate. And I found this. I feel like this is useful, like to have then things like like positive sutras or positive mantras, like we can say to ourselves. Let's say we're getting distracted, and we're doing something. Then we can just remind ourselves, no, wait, I'm doing service, and the service is for Krishna. And then when we meditate and think about that, then it's easy for us to get more engrossed rather than letting our mind wander. And so it's such it's an amazing story by Ramanuja Maharaj, and it definitely sums up the mind like perfectly. And it also brings me to the point about perseverance as well. So it's so difficult, like we were saying, to control our monkey-like mind. But one thing that's so important for us in our Krishna conscious journey is to just keep going on. So even through difficulties, we might feel like the mind's being like our enemy. We might not feel like chanting sometimes, or waking up for Mongols, or our mind's sort of getting to the worst of us. But when we understand that all these feelings, they just arise from the mind. When we understand actually how our thoughts and our feelings all arise from the mind, it actually makes us deal with it a lot better. So we have thinking, feeling, and willing, and all these three things arise from our mind. So our thoughts, they affect how we feel, and how we feel will affect our willing or our actions. And so when we sort of have negative thoughts, we're going to end up feeling negative, and then we're going to sort of not be acting in conducive ways. But if we're able to change our thoughts, then it will affect our feelings and sort of how we go about and our actions as well. And that's why then the question comes, okay, so if our thoughts basically dictate how we feel and how we act, then how do we change what our mind naturally thinks of, or the nature of the thoughts of our mind? And that's all about That's all about changing. That's all about changing what we absorb ourselves in, because that's where the senses come in. So it's actually what we engage our senses in that determine what the natural state of our thoughts are. And that's why this Krishna conscious process is so amazing, because constantly we're engaging ourselves in the service of Krishna in different things, whether it's arati or we're in kirtan, we're doing service, and we're always engaging ourselves in something in sort of Krishna's service. And Prabhupada actually writes this letter on sort of how we can deal with the problems that might arise in our mind. And in this letter he writes, "Yes, the mind is subject to so many impressions from past activities, as well as so many past lifetimes. So when disturbing thoughts enter your mind, you should simply ignore them. Actually, the process is to always remember the lotus feet of the Lord, but this is not an automatic thing. It takes so much practice due to our conditioned state. The process is to follow the regulative principles and regularly chant 16 rounds. That is our strength in spiritual life, and gradually all such problems will be resolved. And because you are sincerely deserving to serve the deity, you can be sure that Krishna will help you in all respects. So simply be preserving and go on chanting attentively, and all these temporary manifestations will come to pass." So there, Prabhupada just gives the solution. Whenever we feel like our mind's getting to the best, our mind's being like an enemy, he's saying, just continue on, just be perseverant, follow the regulatory principles, keep chanting, and keep engaged in service, and naturally, these things will come to pass. And so I found that to be just amazing, and just really good, just like motivation and perseverance from Prabhupada. And then the final thing I just want to touch on is how we can experience Krishna's presence by understanding the material energy. Bhaktivedanta Prabhu gave a class just I think 2 days ago, and he made this point how Krishna communicates to us through the material energy. So if you noticed, he was mentioning that the Bhagavatam, it speaks about creation and the material energy like so many times throughout the whole Bhagavatam. And the reason for that is because if we understand that the material energy is the same as Krishna's energy, then it reduces our tendency to try and enjoy that material energy, because we know that this is Krishna's energy, it's not for me to enjoy, and that we're actually just living on Krishna's grace and Krishna's mercy. And so by understanding how Krishna, this material energy is Krishna, then we're actually able to become sensitive to Krishna's communication to us through this material energy. That's how Krishna actually communicates to us, is through this material energy around us, and then we can, when we understand that, then we can see Krishna constantly guiding us. And he made this amazing point how, pure devotees and devotees like Prabhupada, they see the world completely different to us because, they understand this material energy and that Krishna communicates to them through this. He was mentioning how Prabhupada, he recommended that, the kids in the movement, he said that the kids need to have lots of toys to play with. And the reason for this is because this is what he saw, is that in the future, if they're playing with lots of toys and stuff when they're young as kids, then they have a less tendency in the future to sort of enjoy and sort of play with material nature, material energy. And it's amazing because on the mundane level, we'll never be able to make that connection. But Prabhupada to make that connection because he was so in tune with the material energy. And so, just on this point about understanding the material energy as well, we know that the Lord also can, take on the form of a deity, also known as Archa Vigraha. Quick Bhakti Shastri pop quiz. Some of us might have done this test before. Maybe one of us has done this test. There was this question in the test we did recently on how the Lord can come as, take on the form of a deity or come as Archa Vigraha. Anyone know how he's able to do that?
The Lord is omnipotent and omniscient, so he can turn matter into spirit and spirit into matter.
As he desires.
As he desires.
Powerful. Well remembered, Pulkit. Literally word for word. Yeah, literally. So the Lord can turn matter into spirit and spirit into matter. So, and it reminds me of this story about, with Prabhupada. So one time a devotee went, it wasn't a devotee actually, someone came up to Prabhupada and he asked Prabhupada, quite obnoxiously, can you see Krishna? Can you see God? And Prabhupada said, no, I can't right now because you're standing over the way. And then he made him move away so he could see the deities. But then the funny thing is, Prabhupada was asked this another time as well. And this time a person asked the same question, like, can you see Krishna? Can you see God? But he asked it quite sincerely. And Prabhupada this time, he actually said, yes, I can see God. And then he added, and you can see him too. And then he started explaining to this devotee, he started quoting from the Brahma Samhita and started explaining how he can also see God, and started talking about devotional service. And then this just made me think how Prabhupada gave two different answers depending on the mood of that person. And so, similarly, if we're sincere, then we're also, just like that second person, then we're also able to see sort of Krishna in the deity and actually have that connection with Krishna through the deity as well. And so, when we, spend time in front of the deities and we pray to the deities, and we do that sincerely, then over time we can build that connection and start to actually see how the deity is non-different to Krishna. So, we're almost running, I think, over time. So just to quickly conclude, I just wanted to conclude by saying how we're actually so lucky in this current age, in this current time that we're alive. And the reason I say that is because in this universe, we're currently in this one Mahayuga, right? And a Mahayuga is one cycle of, Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga. So in this current Mahayuga, we've had Krishna, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, come down. And this, as we see in this verse, as Krishna is saying, and this actually form of Krishna is very, very rare because Krishna only appears once every 1,000 Mahayugas. And if you do all the maths and you convert that into human years, that's 8,640,000,000 human years. So Krishna comes once every 8,640,000,000 human years. And Krishna came 5,000 years ago, yeah? Now, to put this in perspective, if we take this one Mahayuga, if we just said one Mahayuga, if we make it relative to just 1 year, then Krishna actually only came 10 hours ago. Yeah. So if one Mahayuga is 1 year, Krishna, it was actually only here 10 years ago, 10 hours ago. It's so recent. Similarly, with Lord Chaitanya, who's just as rare as Krishna, he only came 500 years ago. So in that relative scale, that means Lord Chaitanya was here 1 hour ago. Like what? That would have been like 7:30. He was literally probably taking Maha in the Prasadam room, 1 hour ago. So recent. And then we have Prabhupada as well in this Yuga. And Prabhupada, he only came 50 years ago. And relatively, That's literally only 6 minutes ago Prabhupada was here. So we're so lucky that we have Krishna, we have Mahaprabhu, and we have Prabhupada, and it's so recent. And so there's just an abundance of mercy that's available for us today to take. But if we're more conscious, if we're more conscious of Krishna in our day, if we have a more sincere mood, then we can tap into all that mercy that's available for us, and then we can directly experience Krishna right now in this day and age. And that's how Krishna can descend in our current life. So, yeah, I guess that's everything from me. Thank you for your patience, for your hearing. And yeah, if there's any questions, criticisms, clarifications, now is the time.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you for that class. It was amazing. And it must have such a good idea to come up with that last point to give us perspective of how lucky we are. So I'm really grateful for all the research and effort that went into that.
Did a lot of maths for that.
A lot of maths.
Most of my time was actually spent doing these calculations.
Thank you. So I have a question from one of our friends online. And the question is, and actually I can relate to this one too, how can we not be disenthused when our mind doesn't allow us to be attentive after like repeated attempts? And it's just sometimes, it can just be a bit like, tiring. So how can we not lose that enthusiasm when it's just like repeated, like, inattentiveness?
So it's like when we're trying to focus, we just find that the mind is just going all over the place. How do we stay sort of positive and sort of keep on going, persevering basically?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay. I think that's definitely a very good question. Very, very good question. I think the thing that really helped me, because I experienced this the other week where I found like, and they say this thing like, with the mind is like, if you try and, if you think, if I tell you, don't think of a blue elephant, what are you going to do? Your mind's going to think of a blue elephant, and it's going to start being inattentive and start thinking about, elephants and stuff like that. And so for me, I was experiencing this the other week, how like, I realized it's actually so hard to control the mind. And now, sometimes in japa, I'm trying to focus so hard, but it's like the mind is just all over the place. We all have those weeks, at least for me, a lot of the time. But I think for me, like understanding the nature of the mind and how it works, I feel like that for me, it gives a lot of like, it gives me a lot of peace that, okay, this is the nature of the mind. Then the mind is like a monkey, and it's naturally, as conditioned human beings, it's going to be all over the place just because of how we've been brought up, our conditioning. And so understanding that, firstly, that, the mind is like this, and it's and these things happens, and it's normal to an extent, then that definitely helps. And then for me as well, like understanding then, okay, what we can do about this. If I want to be more attentive, what can I do? If I want to be more absorbed in Krishna, like what can I change? And then, it's just that point about, okay, so the things that affect our thoughts then is what we engage our senses in. And so if we just keep persevering and know that, okay, even though I'm finding it difficult, I'm going to keep carrying on chanting, carry on reading, carry on, listening to classes and stuff. And then eventually I know then that's going to change my mindset and it'll change my thoughts and help me be more sort of attentive as well. So I think understanding the nature of a mind, how it works, how we can actually practically, change our thoughts, and also understanding, I think, I think those two things really sort of help me kind of just be more at peace and sort of keep on going. And also I think, there's that verse as well in the Gita sort of talking about how happiness and distress are like the sort of the seasons that come and go. And even for me, it's kind of like the mind is a bit like that as well. Sometimes we find the mind, some weeks it's just so hard to control, but there's been other times, and we probably don't even notice it, but our minds is kind of like our friend, and it's on the good side, but maybe we're not sort of, we don't realize that at the time. So understanding as well that it's always sort of temporary, and Prabhupada says that in his letter as well, right? In the letter which we read, he said, eventually these temporary disturbances of the mind, they'll naturally pass as long as we keep on sort of chanting and keep rendering service and follow the rules and regs. And so that for me especially also just gives you the motivation that sometimes these things are temporary, but we just got to keep persevering, and then Krishna will see that we're trying and will also help. So if that makes sense or helps.
Definitely. Thank you so much. I can really resonate with that answer as well. It's a lot easier to control something once you understand how it works. Right?
Exactly.
So thank you very much. Thanks.
Otherwise, if there's no other questions, we can end.